Sunless Sea is a game of captivating and stirring ambience. It's a game where exemplary art design combines with a moody soundtrack, and where creative and original lore is complemented by some of the most eloquent prose in video games. Its isolated locales are variously hostile, decaying, otherworldly, meretricious, haunted, rustic, industrial, harrowing, inviting, dreamlike. All of them are memorable and many of them are treacherous. The game begins in fallen London, a sort of moribund harbour town of Victorian mould. You're a nascent sea captain with a dream. Explore the Untersea, return your father's bones. This overarching ambition provides a loose direction for the game, though it seems no one is harder than the other. The ambition chosen, time now to define your past. Were you a mischievous street urchin pickpocket or a wistful tavern poet? Your choice here provides a stat boost in one or two areas, and these stats in turn determine your rate of success with mini-quests within the game. Character established, the time comes to depart the grisly port and head for nearby islands. The control mechanisms for the ship are simple: WSAD to pivot and accelerate or decelerate contextually. Soon the dark waters of the Untersea encroach, the crew grow quiet, and islands in the distance glow in luminescence against the depths. My first departure took me north to the tomb colonies of Venderbright, where I delivered a mummified but very much alive passenger to the harbour there. En route, bat colonies swarmed the ship, a ripe opportunity to practice combat, which is rudimentary and one-dimensional but functional. Having dispatched the swarm, I steered into a pool of dissipating blood to be met with a choice: eat the bats to reduce my hunger, but at the risk of terrifying my crew, or leave them to sink to the miserable nadir of the seabed and not incur a fear penalty. Dilemmas such as these are to a certain extent central to the gameplay of Sunless Sea, and this is due to the scarcity of funds at the beginning of the game, alongside the price of enough food and fuel to stop your crew from starving or your ship drifting. For if either your food or fuel exhaust themselves out on the Untersea, then things become desperate. Extortion at the hands of nearby pirates, blood sacrifices to the gods, abandoning ship, even cannibalism. These scenarios often lead to death, and in Sunless Sea, death is permanent. It is against this fate that you must strategize and economize, and the game's balancing of the cost of necessities for travel with the rewards of taking careful risks produce moments of the most delightfully mooted deliberation. Knowing that a lucrative islet may lie just to the northeast, but also knowing that if it doesn't, it will be an expensive mistake. These relationships are vital to a player's joy when the risk does pay off, and a new land greets them, but also to the swelling anguish that grows traversing leagues upon leagues of open water. But though spellbinding, to say that Sunless Sea is a flawless game would be an exaggeration. The economy of the early game, matched with a randomised map setting for each playthrough, can limit the accumulation of wealth early on if you're unlucky, inhibiting the exploration for some hours. There's also a combat bug that disallows the engagement of more than one foe at a time if they're both within your field of vision, which often saw me scampering ignominiously from a harmless crab as I was unable to engage it, wasting both my fuel and dignity. Well, anyway, it happens a lot and it ruins the atmosphere. Moving on. Some of the issues regarding pace early on in the game are redoubled by late game issues too. Upgrading stats in the game requires the acquisition of things called secrets, which in turn require the discovery of fragments. Whilst fragments are relatively easy to come across as you explore the world, once the world has been fully explored, they're very light on the ground. Stalling upgrades sorely needed for the advancement of the main quest. Also frustrating is the lack of an option to store surplus anywhere in this game, even to hire a room in which to do so, which is incredibly frustrating when you have to haul precious cargo overboard just to make room for a vital item. But despite all these complaints, despite the text-based adventure basis, which could be seen as dull or quote-unquote not a game, despite the pedestrian, predictable combat, Sunless Sea remains a memorable, compelling and affecting adventure, with one of the most distinguished and unique worlds I've ever seen. And in fact, the fact that there are so many annoyances, but that they're always forgiven, goes to show just how much I enjoyed this game. Although some fans will curse the ponderous nature of chugging from port to port to trade mushroom wine, and they'd be right to do so because it is testing, others will be entranced by this game's astonishing fantasies. Even if it is flawed, it's something of a flawed masterpiece.